Hello, welcome to the Week 2 Genetics and Reproduction assignment. Yours is going to look slightly different because I'm still in edit mode of the syllabus. That's why it says edit details, but you'll have your tab and it will be due, should be due on that date, right? Yep, we're in this class, so we're cool. And then you'll have different things over here. I'm going to look at the rubric. You should be watching the playlist. There's a template to help you in APA in general, a reference, and then some additional online resources just for this week in general. So you can click on that and see a lot of videos to help you understand the materials. I'm going to go through the whole directions in the rubric because it's in there too. So let me pause this and open that sucker up. Okay, so when you down the rubric, it gives you the instructions first. You'll notice you need at least 5 PowerPoint presentation slides. And then you're going to be talking about the female copperhead snakes have the ability to reproduce both sexually and asexually. In your opinion, which method is the best for the species and why? So discussing the asexual pros and cons is going to be a 1.5. Discussing the sex pros and cons will be a 1.5. Talking about what this has to do with meiosis is going to be another 1.5. You get a point for bringing in Mendel's laws, and then a 0.5 point for telling me which is the better in terms of genetic diversity for the snake. So maybe you have, excuse me, maybe there's reasons why asex is best and sex, which you will have discussed in the pros and cons, but you want to make sure you hit that genetic diversity in there. Is it better in asexual reproduction or is it better in sexual reproduction? Then you're going to have citations. You always need at least 3 for references, and you'll have in-text and full reference in-text citations, right? And then along with all the format stuff. So let's go. Here's the table version. So same thing, 3 points, 0.5 point for each. 0.5 point for meiosis, a point for Mendel. You got to be specific. So you're going to see, I don't want you generally like Mendel looked at sweet peas. Hella not specific. I need to know he has several laws. Which law are you going to be using to convince me that whatever is the best? Like, what is the law that's appropriate to be discussing? And then a 0.5 point for actually telling me which is the best. And then, you know, references are generally 0.5 point for in-text citation, 0.5 point for full. If you don't have 3, you get a 0. If you don't have in-text citations, then match, you get a 0. So it's kind of like if you mess up a little bit, you might lose 0.5 point. If you don't even give me an option, don't try or screw it completely because you're not 100 level, you're going to get a 0. So how do you handle this? Go to the library, go to the reference citation generator, plug in things as it tells you to do it, and let it pump all this stuff out so it's fast and easy. It makes life so much better than being like, oh my god, how do I do this? Just like, dude, let it do it for you. Save the time. Pretty soon you'll see how it does it so much you won't need that reference citation generator. But in the beginning, it's just easiest to plug and check. And then the same thing, 100 level APA, so I want my title page right, I want a thesis in there, you know, I want stuff that has to do with it. So then I also gave you how I would approach this. You don't have to do it this way. This is how I would approach this assignment. So in the intro, I would talk about the big picture, pros and cons. So just sex in general. I would also talk about copperhead snakes, something about them, what they're like, have an image in there because we are doing, you know, a PowerPoint. And I would end with a thesis like in terms of genetic diversity, X, so sex or asex, whichever one it is preferable to the other one for female copperhead snakes because of Z, where Z will be the reasons that you talk about, you know, later on. So then I would have asexual slider slides, it's the pros and cons. You might do a table where you put them all together. You might not make sure underneath each of these slides you've got those speaker notes. If you need help, there's a video on it in the week 2, I believe. Check. So there should be a video, or bug me and I'll go check later. But you have a video on how to do speaker notes specifically. I guess I can throw up PowerPoint and show you really quick too here. Okay, and then sex slides, pros and cons. You want a table, you want photos. This is where I bring in meiosis. I might do one on sexual selection and then like the overall pros and cons, and then focus in on how meiosis has to do with this. And then maybe what crossing over is important. And then Mendel, I'm going to give you a law, a very specific law, and then add in with the A or sex or sex. And then conclusion, you wrap up with, you know, why copperheads might do both. Again, just re-emphasize that, but this is the best in terms of genetic diversity. So it says remember to put your speaker notes. That's going to be your paper. So really what you do is you kind of write a paper, and then your slides highlight what's in your paper, and this paper would be in the speaker notes. You know, it's what you would be saying more or less. And I think it's all down here. So let me pause it, and I'll be a good professor and open up PowerPoint and show you where those speaker notes are really quickly. There should be a separate slide on it. Alright, so I opened up PowerPoint. It's in this presentation view. You can add the titles. If you need to add a new slide, it's over here with new slide. So you just do all that stuff. So for speaker notes, this is where it gets important. You see sometimes there's nothing underneath the slide. You're like, what the heck is she talking about? So you go down here, see how my little arrow changed to the double arrow? And I haul that sucker up. Now I have a place that says, if I click off it, click to add notes. So I add there. I add my notes down here. And this is where I might say, like, let's say the secrets of reproduction. Or whatever. So I would type all that down in here. You can see how I can tab over just like for a regular paragraph. I can hit Control B and then stuff is bold. So if I need to be doing that, I can. So this is where you're going to write all that stuff. It's down here in speaker notes. And this should be a good paragraph per a slide. Well, the title slide you probably won't have much, but the rest of the slides you're going to have a good paragraph or two. If you keep your PowerPoint presentation on the lower in the slides, so closer to 5 rather than more, your speaker notes are going to be bigger because you'll be covering more stuff per slide. If you tend to be more slidey, so say you have 10 slides because you really want to have a picture per slide or whatever you wish to do, then you'll probably have slightly less, but you want about at least a paragraph. If you're really hardcore, in 2 paragraphs. If you put a picture on the slides, let's just say a new slide, whatever, and you put a picture on here, you would insert your picture up here, and then underneath it you would put the in-text citation. If you're doing your speaker notes down here and you're referring to something, either paraphrasing it or quoting it, and up here too, if you paraphrase or quote, but most of that's going to be down speaker notes because that's where most of your information is, then you need to have that in-text citation. Up here in the slide, you probably want to do, typically it's a photo with bullet points. You want to keep bullet points at about 3 to 4 words. So no long paragraphs, no long quotes. We don't want that on the slide because then your audience is reading your slide. You want to be telling your audience how to interpret the slide, what's important about the slide. So all that longer information will be down here in the speaker notes. And in fact, effectively, I should be able to read your speaker notes without the slides and be like, okay, I kind of want a few pictures about this. And then include the slides and be like, oh, this is such a nice visual accompaniment. Instead of like seeing speaker notes and not being able to understand the presentation, you know, so you kind of want it a little bit more on the speaker notes side. The slides are there to accent things. So like if I'm talking all this stuff, this good hard science about asexual reproduction, in the slide I want some pictures to help me understand what that really means in a more layperson's terminology. Maybe have a table like I said, whatever works to bring it to life. So it's the accompaniment, not the other way around. I know it's a little confusing because you think speaker notes should be really short. They're notes, but unfortunately they're more like the paper. So just keep that in mind and do your best. Remember, I love to review a draft. I think I've covered everything. If there's something that's confusing, feel free to send me those drafts before the noon on the due date. And one other thing, if you're way quote heavy, because some people like to just give me quotes because you're not confident with your own interpretation of the science and it becomes only quotes as answers. Anytime I only see a quote answer, like all that's in it is one big quote to respond to a prompt, you will have a maximum of half credit for that response. Because college is about analysis. I need to know that you have processed this information and you're telling me what it means to you, because that's what I care about. I don't necessarily care about this famous person who can quote this shit, because like, yay, they can quote it. What can you think? What are you adding to the conversation? I want to hear your voice. So try to paraphrase more than quote. You still need in-text citations for paraphrasing, but I get to hear you. I get to see where your thought process is going. Okay, I think that's everything. I'm going to shut up, close this video, send me private messages if you need more info.